Assalamu alaikum dear viewers and welcome to Raza English Academy. I am KASHIF Raza Joyyyah, Assistant Professor of English in Higher Education Department, Punjab. This particular lecture is a part of the series which I am going to deliver on web for the people who have applied for lectureship in English in Punjab Public Service Commission. As far as my own service record is concerned, I joined a higher education department in 2009 as a lecturer, obviously, and then in 2015 I appeared again for the examination for assistant professor and I cleared it again. So I have been through this examination process twice. So I have an experience of both subjective and objective papers. You must have watched many videos on web about preparation. You must have got lots of advice from very experienced people. I won't say that whatever you have already watched or whatever you have already heard from these people taken as advice is useless. I want to add certain things to that, and that is why I have decided to make a few videos that will help the people who are going to appear in this examination. Obviously, when I passed my masters in English, my only desire was to somehow get lectureship. The same is the desire with many around us. I want to be helpful to them. In this series of lectures, I will not only share data with you but also tell you how to collect data for objective paper. So that will be more helpful to you when you must be reading on your own. Let's move on to let me introduce you to the lecture of today. Today we are going to talk about the ages of English literature. It is a brief review. It has been developed in a way that will help you to gather objective data. So let's move on to the lecture now. As far as ages of English literature is concerned, they are divided in these different periods. The first of them is called Old English period or Anglo Saxon period, that was between 450 to 1066. Then comes the Middle English period, that was 1066 to 1500. The Renaissance 1500 to 1660. The Neoclassical period 1660 to 1785, the Romantic period from 1785 to 1832, the Victorian period from 1832 to 1901, the Edwardian period from 1901 to 1914, the Georgian period from 1910 to 1936, the modern period it moves on from 1914 and still continues, and the postmodern is moving along with it. So these are the different ages we are going to learn about in this series of lectures. In today's lecture we are going to read only about the Old English period and Middle English period. So let's move on to the next slide and see what we have. Historical background of Anglo-Saxon period. Old English or Anglo-Saxon period starts with the invasion of Celtic England in 450 by the Germanic tribes. The Angles and the Anglo-Saxons, they were aided by the Jews, and it is from these names, the names of these tribes, that the word Anglo-Saxon is derived, that is given to this period. The tribes, the Angles and the Saxons, this is combined to make the Anglo-Saxon. This era ended in 1066 when the Normans from the Normandy in the northern France invaded England. So this is the historical background. Literary figures and works of the time. Prior to 7th century, there was oral literature only, and like many other literatures, English literature also had the oral literature. We have heard this thing about the Greek literature also, the Latin literature also. In our own culture, the Punjabi literature, even the Urdu literature of the early era is found as oral literature. Then Caedmon's hymns, written during the 7th century, is considered by Bede the oldest poem in Anglo-Saxon tradition. So look at the arrangement. Caedmon's hymns, this is what you have to keep in your mind. That is how we collect objective data. And it was written during the 7th century, And who considers it the oldest poem in Anglo-Saxon tradition? Bede considers it the oldest poem in Anglo-Saxon tradition. Then Christ, Elene, Juliana, and the Fates of the Apostles are important works of Cinewolf or Cinewolf. These both the pronunciations are used for this writer. Look again at the on your screen that Christ, Elene, Juliana, and Fates of Apostles. These are the names of the works you have to keep in mind. And whose works are these? They are the works of Cinewolf or Cinewolf. Beowulf is the most famous work of the time. It is anonymous and it is an epic that consists of 3182 alliterative lines. So what you have to keep in your mind: Beowulf, an epic, anonymous, and 3182 alliterative lines. So that is how you collect your objective data. Let's move on to the next slide. Key features of this particular age, this Anglo-Saxon age, and its literature are that the heroic poetry elements were like too much in the literature. Then Christian ideals were also dealt with. Then there was synecdoche, metonymy, and irony. These were the figures of you can say speech that were used most commonly in the literature of the time. You can go on the web and look for them, what they are and how they were used in that particular time. We move on ahead to the next age now, that is the Middle English period, and it started in 1066 and it continued till 1500. Historical background: like the Middle English period begins in 1066 when the Normans from Normandy in northern France invaded England. Like the same thing which was the end of historical background of the Anglo-Saxon period is the beginning of the historical background of the Middle English period. The era is marked for transition in the language, culture, and lifestyle of England. Well, we all know that the Normans who came from Normandy in the northern France, they were deeply rooted in French language. So when they came over to England, obviously there had to be a sort of assimilation of the languages, cultures, and lifestyles. So a new lifestyle, a new type of language, and a new type of culture began to develop in England. Though the Normans introduced French as the main language, English language also developed a good deal. So that's the historical background. This Middle English language, the most important thing that developed in this era was language. Along with literature, although there was literature, but what actually developed was language. So the Middle English language is divided into three periods: early Middle English, that starts from 1100 and continues up till 1250; the Central Middle English from 1250 to 1400; and late Middle English from 1400 to 1500. So in these three different eras, English language developed. And one thing you have to keep in mind, along with literature, language is also an important topic to be dealt with when we are reading about the Middle English period. So Middle English language, early Middle English from 1100 to 1250. During this period, the Old English system of writing remained in vogue. Like again, the Anglo-Saxon style or Old English style remained in vogue, means it continued to hold its sway in this particular period. Then we have Central Middle English, that was from 1250 to 1400, and it is a comparatively more critical era for language because during this period literary dialects were formed. Orthography, which is actually the conventional way of developing spelling of the words, that was influenced by the Anglo-Normans, it was also developed. A large number of Anglo-Norman words were incorporated in English language. The London dialect flourished in the hands of writers such as John Garr and Geoffrey Chaucer. So the London dialect, it sometimes appears as one of the options. Which dialect was used by John Garr or Geoffrey Chaucer? So your answer should be the London dialect. Next we have late Middle English. The period is marked by the spread of the London dialect. At the same time, a split between the Scottish dialect and other northern dialects began to take place. So that's important for that reason. Middle English language, these dialects were also divided in certain parts. The first one of them is Southern dialect. So Southern dialect, it was subdivided into Southeastern or Kentish and Southwestern, and it was used in counties south of the River Thames. Then we have Midland dialect. In the areas from Thames to South Yorkshire and Northern Lancashire, it was used in these particular areas. Then we have Northern dialect. In Scottish Lowlands, Cumbria, Northumberland, Durham, North Lancashire and large parts of Yorkshire, this dialect was used in these areas. Literary figures and works, when we talk about them, the writings of the early Middle English period were chiefly religious in theme and nature. So this sometimes becomes a short, you can say, short question type of thing, like what type of literature was being written during the early Middle English period, what were the themes and what was the nature of this literature. So we can say that it was religious in its nature, and the themes were themes also revolved around the religious, you can say, ideas. And the secular writings began around 1350 onwards. So this is another important point, like when did the secular writings in English literature begin? So you can say they began in 1350 onwards. When we talk about the literary figures of the time, well, Geoffrey Chaucer, he needs no introduction. He is considered to be the father of English literature. He was born in 1340 and he died in 1400. So that's the point to remember, his date of birth and his date of death. His most important works, like here, because I have already told you that it is a brief overview, so what I am doing is only giving you the gist of the things. There will be a lecture on Geoffrey Chaucer where we will deal with these things in detail also, but here I am telling you about his works only. So these are his works: the Book of the Duchess, the House of Fame, Troilus and Cressida, the Legend of Good Women, a treatise on the astrolabe, and the Canterbury Tales, for which he is actually known because the Canterbury Tales have been a part of the syllabi of the universities all over our country. That's why we know Geoffrey Chaucer. Then the next important figure is Thomas Malory. He was born in 1415 and he died in 1471. He is an important figure because he wrote The Death of Arthur, which is a reworking of Arthurian mythology and is considered the first major work of English language prose. The Death of Arthur is its English title. If you look at the title, Le Mort d'Arthur, that is in French, so it also shows the influence of French language on English language. We move on to the next title, who is Robert Henryson, and he rose to fame in Scotland during 1460 to 1500. His major works include the Moral Fables of Aesop and Phrygian, the Tale of Orpheus and Eurydice his queen, the Testament of Cressida. So he wrote many short poems also and fables as well, but these are his major works. Literary figures, when we talk about them, there was a literary work, Piers Plowman, and which is an allegory. Some people say it is anonymous, but it is also associated with William Langland, who was born in 1332 and who died in 1386. Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, that is also a notable work, and again that is of anonymous title. It is a chivalric romance and considered one of the best Arthurian stories. So we look at the key features of this Middle English literature: moral, ethical and didactic nature of works, literary works, like morality was being discussed, ethics were being discussed, and they were the writings were moral in their construction. Hero worship, as in Arthurian legends, that was also there. Introduction of secular thought, that came with Geoffrey Chaucer and Gar. Then change in pronunciation and incorporation of French diction. Chivalric romance was also celebrated in this era, in this period. So these are the key features of Middle English literature. So dear viewers, that's all for today. I'll see you in the next lecture with the another age, that is the Renaissance. one thing you have to keep in your mind is that what I have told you is not everything. You must go on web, you must look into the books and look for the things that I have told you. All the points that we call the main points have been highlighted. Keep them in mind. They are going to help you a lot in your objective type of paper. Thank you very much for watching this video, and I hope that the system continues, and I will give you another lecture within a couple of days. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for my channel, like it and share it onwards. Thank you.